right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. We are so excited to have here with us another Steno royalty, Ron Cook. Ron Cook, welcome. Ron Cook has been reporting over 40 years, I guess, right?
Yes, I'm afraid to say.
And I see here that you were the first ever certified real-time reporter examination, or you took it and passed it in 1992. So you're like the pioneer of all of all of this real-time. And I know we're going to hear a little bit later about your mirror method, but first, could you tell us a little bit of why court reporting? Why way back did you start court reporting?
Okay, so I was majoring in physical education at San Diego State University way back when, and I was always athletic, but I wasn't athletic enough to be a competitor at a D1 level, Division I level. So the classes that I was trying to take were all being filled by the athletes on the campus, and so I was really getting nowhere, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I loved sports, and so at that time they had commercials for court reporting on TV, and I looked at those and I thought, well, I'm not sure where I'm going with this whole PE thing, but whatever that court reporting thing is, I think I could do that. So I didn't know if it was for men or for women or if it mattered, and so I kind of looked into it, and next thing you know, I dropped out of physical education and I started court reporting school, and the rest is history.
Where did you go to school?
I actually went to a school called Tri-Community Adult Education in Southern California, Covina, California, and I paid all of $18 a trimester.
Wow.
And it's not because it was so long ago, it's because it was a very inexpensive school and I was very blessed to be able to come upon it. It wasn't the best school, but it served its purpose for me.
What do you know what kind of theory they taught there?
Yes, we learned Herman Miller theory, which was, I remember even back then, I went to school in 1976, and it was called computer compatible. And in a sense, I suppose it was, but we had tons and tons of conflicts, which I might say right now that I still have some conflicts, and I don't fear them anymore. I kind of embrace them. But yeah, so it was Herman Miller theory, and we learned to write no and no the same way. We learned to write there, and there the same way. And so, yeah, I've steadily tried to reduce my conflicts, and yeah, so here we are.
So what that first real-time certification, what prompted you to do that, or what gave you interest in that?
Well, I've always been competitive from my PE days, and I was always a clean rider, and this was kind of a way to assess myself compared to others throughout the country. Oh, hang on here. I've got some glitch going on my computer. Sorry about it. Sorry, guys. Can you guys hear me, or am I?
We can hear you. It sounds a bit echoey, though.
All right. Now what have I done?
I can still hear you.
Okay. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't see anything on this screen, so, but I guess that's okay. You can still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so where were we? Sorry.
First real-time certification, you took that first test way back in 1990, what was it?
Yeah, 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was at a time when we used to provide floppy disks. I think I was down to a 5.5-inch floppy disk at the time, and the requirement to turn in that particular test was 3.25 inch or whatever the next one was. And so I had to scurry the night before the exam to even get the equipment necessary to be able to turn in the right thing that they needed and to be able to pass that test. But there were 9 of us that passed the first CRR.
Wow, that's great. So tell us, before we get into some of your creative side, tell us a little bit about your career, what you've been doing, since you started, what kind of reporting you've been doing or captioning.
I've really done no captioning. I've done just about everything else. When I started out as a deposition reporter, and about 3 years into it, there was a court reporter gentleman that had been reporting for about 40 years, and I had kind of been taken under his wing, and he wanted to phase out, and so I basically took over the agency in about 1980, so I was an agency owner, small as it was. Ran that for about 10 years, and then my wife and I, we got married in about 85, and we had 3 little girls by 1990, and so we decided we wanted to raise our family in a different area, so we moved up to Seattle, Washington, and we proceeded to have 3 boys after that. So anyway, I sold my firm down in LA, and I swore that I would never do that again, because running a firm and being a working reporter is next to impossible. So for about 15 years, I just freelanced. I did overflow for others, and I developed some clients. And then I met an attorney videographer, legal videographer that was also an attorney. And we started talking, and we actually decided it would be wise to join forces, because he knew the video side, plus he was a lawyer, and plus I was able to continue reporting full time. So we partnered for probably 10 years, from about 2007 to 2017. And then I just decided to leave the firm about 1.5 years ago and go out on my own. But all that time I was freelancing, doing depositions for the most part, and doing some cart work, which is, hopefully people know that, but it's kind of doing one-on-one captioning for hard of hearing or deaf people, or in meetings where we broadcast it up on the screen. But mostly I did depositions. And so we had a non-compete when I left my agency. And so I'm actually now back down in Los Angeles, and I'm doing court work for the first time ever for about the last year. And I'm really enjoying the court work.
Oh, that's great. And are you providing real time for your judge?
Yes, actually, I just finished a trial that was, and I don't have a judge. We just, there are several freelancers, and we just basically float around and do what's ever needed. And it's a pretty cool gig, and I'm certainly not complaining. So my last trial that I just finished up about 2 days ago, I was doing real time for the judge. I was doing real time for both parties. They were asking for rough drafts at the end of the day, and no finals. And so that was pretty cool. But then on last Saturday, I got an email from the attorney. They had not said one word about providing finals. And so on Saturday, I got an email about noon from the attorney saying, hey, we need the last 4 days before Monday, which is closing arguments. So I spent all last weekend preparing 4 days worth of transcripts. So that was fun.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. But if you're providing real time and rough drafts, etc., then I'm guessing that the transcript was pretty easy to finalize.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. I have a little technique that I use where I keep track of my progress when I'm editing. So every 15 minutes, I'll keep track of what page I'm on, and that just helps me lock in and make sure that I'm focused 100%, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes. Great. Well, I want to talk about speed contests now. But yeah. First, is everybody able to hear? Because one person said she's not hearing the audio. I just want to make sure she's the only one having trouble. So I guess if you can't hear me, you wouldn't know, because
I'm able to hear Laura.
Okay, so people, maybe it's just that one person. So, okay, great. All right, so speed contests. What drew you to them? I guess you already said you're competitive.
Yes, indeed, I'm competitive. And actually, you know, I took one speed contest back in, I don't know, 1800. 1987, 1988. So I think I took 2 years in a row, and I was really kind of blown away, and I thought, man, this is crazy. But I always had clean notes, and I always said back then, you know, they should have some kind of a competition, not so much just for flat out speed, but for accuracy. And then they came up with the real-time contest, and I said, wow, that's just exactly what I was looking for. So my forte is more the real-time than the speed. But I do both, and I've done much better in the real-time, but I'm getting faster. I'm writing shorter now than I used to, and I'm continuing to change my writing to continue to write shorter, just because I've been at this a long time, and the fewer strokes you can use during the course of the day, the less fatigue you get and the less wear and tear on your body. So yeah, I'm competitive, and so I want, oh my goodness, I've been hacked or something. Oh. All right, is that gone now?
Oh, we don't see anything.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yep.
Oh. Okay, good.
We don't see you. We just hear you.
All right. Well, sorry about that. I got all dressed up. I'm even wearing a tie for you.
You might want to make sure you have your video, what do you call it? Where it says start video. You have to click on that actually.
Oh, start video.
There you are.
Okay.
Now we've got you.
All right. Very good. Oh, and I see your slideshow. Very good. Okay. All right. Fire away, Laura. I'm sorry.
Okay, so speed contest. Now you said you were interested in it, and you've done the real time. Just give me kind of a rundown of how many times you've placed and won. It boggles my mind. I'll tell you that much right here.
Oh, you're a serious competitor too. So I've never won the speed contest, and I've won the Q&A real time contest twice. I think in 2012 and 2016. And I've won the DRA real-time competition last year. In 2016, I actually tied with Dee Bano. I don't know if you guys have interviewed her or not, but I actually tied with her. But there are two legs to the real-time contest. There's a literary and there's a Q&A. And we actually had the same exact amount of overall errors. She had one less in the literary and I had one less in the Q&A. But because there are fewer words in the literary, when you do the math, she beat me by 6/1000%. So I came in second overall. But so there's an overall winner, and then there's winners of the Q&A and a winner of the literary. And I've won the Q&A twice.
Right. Wow, that's pretty amazing. I know Dee Bano is a really good, and she also is very serious about her competition. So to have done that is pretty amazing just in and of itself.
Yeah, I'll get her.
Right. Are you going to compete this year in Denver at the NCRA?
Yes, I'm planning on it. I think I shared with you that I'll be going to Italy. So I'm focused on what's called Intersteno in Italy, and I think you're going to be going as well, if I'm not mistaken.
See you there. I will see you there.
Oh, how cool. That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm excited about that. Never done that before. I've been wanting to compete in Intersteno. I don't really know what it's about, but I know that a lot of the Americans have done fairly well, and so I'm looking forward to that.
Yes.
And then I'm going to Denver after that. That's the plan.
Yeah, you're going to do well in Intersteno. I'll see you up there on that stage, I'm sure.
Thank you. I hope so.
So we have a question from a student in the chat box. Says, I'm a student and I've heard differing opinions about when to start working on real time. What is your opinion on when to start considering being able to work real time?
You know, that is an outstanding question. I do think that one reason why students aren't getting through school as fast as they could be is because they're learning too stroke intensive of a theory. And that stroke intensive theory stems from the fact that they're trying to get students to come out and be real-time ready right off the bat. You don't need to do that. You have the rest of your career to tweak things, to make things better, but you want to write as short as you can. If your school is teaching you to put in strokes for things that aren't being said, for example, like a delete space, if they said, what was it worth while you owned it? Worthwhile is one word, but I can put in a stroke between worth and while to get those two separated. If they're teaching that kind of thing in school, that's way, way, way too advanced. I would say shorten your writing, get through school, and then work on your real time. That's not to say you want sloppy notes, but don't worry so much about conflicts. In fact, I say now that conflicts aren't the enemy that they once were. I know there are a lot of students and a lot of reporters that are very proud of the fact that they're quote unquote conflict free. But I embrace conflicts, and I can talk about that more if you want as well.
Nice, nice. If you have any more questions, go ahead and post them. But I did want to ask you first about your mirror method, which I find absolutely fascinating. Can you explain that a little bit for us?
Do you want me to describe that briefly? I can try. Yeah, I'll do a kind of a brief synopsis. When I was in school, when I would do a little warm-up, I would write the alphabet on the left hand, and my right hand would either be doing absolutely nothing or writing the periods as I was writing the alphabet. So A period, B period, C period, and so on. So far, so good?
Yes, got it. And actually in the chat box, you have already someone who is doing the mirror method, so.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so in school, I'm thinking, all right, my right hand is doing virtually nothing. What can I do to give my right hand a little bit of a warm-up? So I said, okay, I'm going to take the left hand and I'm going to mirror on the right whatever the left hand is doing. So if I'm going to stroke the A, then the U is the mirror of the A. Does that make sense?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So then we go to B, and B is the middle finger on the crack, right? So we mirror that on the right side. I don't even know what those letters are. I need to F, P. So PB, I think, is on the right, and that's mirroring what I'm doing on the left. Now, the trick to the whole mirror thing is not focusing on the letters themselves on the right, but the finger positioning, if that makes sense. So if I'm writing the B on the left, I'm going to mirror that finger positioning on the right. Then we go to C, which I write KR, and I'm going to mirror that on the right, which is RG. Has nothing, again, to do with the letters themselves. It has everything to do with the finger positioning. Still with me?
Yep, still here.
Okay, so that's what you need to grasp first off, is that whole alphabet idea. So fast forward 25 years later, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm really working on shortening my writing. So what can I do to shorten that writing? And I thought about that mirror deal that I did way back in school, and I said, how can I incorporate that? So what I've done, there are all kinds of little words on that left hand that we don't have on the right hand. So we've got were, we've got did, when, whether, which, in, if, all those little words on the left side that we don't have on the right side. So I said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take two words, and I'm going to write the first word with the left hand. I'm going to mirror what the second word otherwise would have been on the right side. So if I'm going to say in this, so ordinarily I would have to write in this in two strokes. Now I'll take the in on the left and I'll mirror the this on the right. So I can do in this in one stroke. Another one might be do. So I can write to, T-O, and I can mirror the D-O on the right. So I can write to do at the same time. Taking that one step further, and we can get a little further into that if you want to, but taking that one step further, I add endings, and so DZ in phrasing is that. So now I can do to do as a mirror, and I can add DZ at the end of that, and that's to do that. I do TSDZ, and that's to do this. I do TD for it, now I can do to do it. And so just by adding those little endings, it just adds a whole lot more briefs. I don't know if any of that made sense, but hopefully some of that sticks.
It does, and that's a great kind of little review introduction to that. Do you have any materials or anything that you share with people to kind of learn more about this?
Well, I have an outline that explains the concept, and I have a whole listing of over 1,000 of these little mirror combinations that I've formed over the years. So yeah, I have that. I'm happy to share that. I've never written a book. I've never done any of that stuff. I just kind of fly under the radar, but I do have that.
Great. Well, yeah, if you could share anything of that, I will upload it to my student page, Facebook student page. So that'll be.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of questions here. So let me go back to the first one. A couple of people asked about conflicts. Can you speak a little more on your opinion of conflicts? Need to encourage students not to worry about that.
Yes. We were so focused on resolving whatever conflicts we learned in school. Turns out that the artificial intelligence on the computer softwares, at least mine, is so good these days that I just let my computer worry about the conflicts. It doesn't get them right 100% of the time, but I would say it gets the right conflict over 90% of the time. Matter of fact, one of those real-time contests that I won first place in, I counted my conflicts. I had 17 conflicts, and it picked every one right. So that's why I say conflicts aren't the enemy they once were.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is true. You can do things with conflicts like add commas and punctuation, and the artificial intelligence will pick which one you want, the one with commas or the one without commas. It's really helpful.
Exactly.
That's why I always love to encourage people to get to know their software so it'll be working for you as opposed to your having to struggle and take more time to clean up transcripts.
Exactly. In fact, I'm just now working on years as conflicts. So if I write 2014, I want it to come out either as 2014 with no commas or 2014 with a comma before and a comma after, and let the software figure that out. Yeah. So, and then the other thing, for example, we tuck in our endings so we can lop off more strokes. And so if there's a G ending I can tuck in, I will do that and lop off some strokes. But here's one example of how I've embraced conflicts. I write up as UP, and then if I want to write upper, I can tuck the R in, and so I write upper as URP. At about the same time I was learning to do that, I learned that RP on the right is were in phrasing. So then I started writing URP for you were. So you were and upper is a conflict, and I just put it in that way, and I let my software resolve that conflict. And I didn't worry about, oh, I can't write you were because that's how I write upper. I just put them in as a conflict and let the AI worry about it.
Mm-hmm. I think, though, the one thing that I would say is when you're doing card or captioning, and if the artificial intelligence happens to choose the wrong one, that would be kind of a bad thing. So
absolutely, that is one caveat. If you're doing card and captioning, then yeah, conflicts may come back to bite you, and that's happened to me before too. I don't think anybody, I don't recommend that you go into card or captioning right out of school. So, you know, if those are your sites, then maybe you want to be a little bit more particular about your conflicts. But I think if you're going to work toward that, you can, you know, fix your conflicts as you go.
Yeah, and I have gotten rid of most of mine over the years, but I do have a few, and I like to write everything I can. I mean, there are certain things that come up so often you would want to have conflict free, like there, and there. I'm thinking no and no,
Yeah.
for example. But some of the other ones are not so, you don't use them so much, and so I think it would be okay to have a conflict.
Yeah, I've resolved all the there, and there's, and the no's and no's, and all those basic ones years and years ago. In fact, I made a list and I titled it Devastating Conflicts. And I would just work through one at a time until I resolved most of them. But one that I never did resolve was am and many. So, and that's pretty basic.
Yeah, I tend to add asterisks for some of them. So, for example, my am has an asterisk in it. So that's how I do it. But okay, let's see some more questions here. Someone says she's been doing a lot of CART, university work, learned to paraphrase. So everything comes out perfectly, but her speed when she freelances is not that great. So how does she get her speed back up to maintain the perfect real time, but at speed?
Well, I think practice. I think you need to practice writing verbatim. If you're doing some cart stuff and you're doing more synopsizing or paraphrasing, that will hinder your speed. And I think that you just need to practice verbatim writing because it's a skill in itself. I think if you're able to paraphrase, that's a skill in itself. But yeah, I can see where that would hinder your speed. And can I touch on practice just for a minute, Laura?
Yes, yes, definitely.
I don't know how many people we have online here, but I want to just say that sometimes we do the same things over and over and over, and we expect different results. And this is a lot mental, you guys. And how many of you have focused on practicing your mental toughness? Because sometimes you actually have the speed, but your brain is telling you it's too fast, it's too fast. And if you start working on that mental side of things, don't let the self-talk talk you out of the fact that you're better than you are. Don't let the self-talk tell you that you can't get something when you can. And then one other kind of analogy that I like to use is if you were driving down the freeway. So you're driving down the freeway and you're going 65 miles an hour. And as you look out forward, you know, things are coming at you at a relatively decent pace. As soon as you turn your head directly to the side, things are flying by, right? So as those things fly by, you can't even see a lot of that stuff. And I see the same kind of analogy when it comes to words. I want to just sit there and let the words come to me and let it flow. You've got to let it go and let it flow. But if you're looking to the side as you're trying to get every word, you know, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to be full of stress, and you just need to just let it go. So for what that's worth.
Yeah, that's actually very good advice. Our minds certainly get in our way so much.
And I have that same issue as well. I'm continuing to try to work on that for sure.
Yes, yes, definitely. I mean, always. You always work on it. Never stop.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? If I missed something, type it in again because it went by. There's a lot of students on this call. Do you have any particular advice for students as to, you know, how to conquer school better and you know, maybe get through a little quicker?
Well, I would say have an open mind, number one. And if somebody tells you a little trick that they may have picked up somewhere, don't just turn them off because your theory doesn't do it that way. If it clicks for you, you might want to incorporate it. Also, don't compare yourself with others. Some people are going to fly through school and get through every speed without much issue. You don't want to be comparing yourself because then it gets, again, mental. You start thinking, all right, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not passing the next level? If you can learn to just let it go, let it flow, not compare yourself, and I can't stress the mental side enough. It's just so important that you not be negative and that you speak it into existence. You know you can do this. If I can do this, any of you can do this. You just need to know it, you need to believe it, and you need to just get after it. But don't let it get you down. Stay positive. And again, stay open-minded. If somebody's got some suggestions that might work. This whole mirror thing, by the way, some people think I'm absolutely nuts and other people think it's brilliant. So if you're one of those that think it's nuts, then don't dwell on it and move on. And if somebody has some other idea for you that really, really resonates, then you might start incorporating that. I would highly recommend that you work on writing shorter, but that can come with time. But just don't overstroke. Don't stroke things like if you want to get something to come out with a capital letter, don't worry about that kind of thing. You don't want to worry about inserting a space as you're writing or inserting a delete space. You don't need to worry about any of that kind of thing. You just need to get through school and then you can fine tune.
Great. Here's a couple questions popping up. How do you handle untranslates during real time?
Uh, well, my software handles the untranslates, and it's very good at it. Sometimes it doesn't get it right, but so it'll take a stab at what it thinks is the right word that I've either misstroked or just have never put in my dictionary, and it will put it in as a different color. So I can see that, okay, my computer used its AI to translate that particular word, and I just look at it, and if it's right, I just move forward, and if it's wrong, I will correct it. And at the same time, I'll put it into my permanent dictionary so that I don't have that untranslated anymore. But I don't have any untranslates because my computer is going to translate what it thinks is right.
Okay, good. And just to answer Roderick, yes, you could write lamb and lamb the same way and the software would correct. For that one though, you might want to write them differently, but that's the general idea. And then there's a couple of questions. One, Donna says it seems pretty overwhelming, the quest to write shorter to get to the speeds. What's the best way to manage it all?
Well, another good question. You've got some smart people here. I've always looked for more bang for my buck. So, and I'm not sure if I'm answering this directly, but if you get some idea of where you can kill more than one bird with one stone, for example, a family. So tucking in the endings. I lop off hundreds of strokes every single day because I tuck in my endings. And if you don't know what that means, let's say that you write test, T-E-F-T. I use the F for my S. So T-E-F-T, excuse me. I will reach down and I will tuck in that G. So testing. Or I write test and then I have Y-D-Z, and so I write test and I can add the D in the same stroke. So tested is one stroke. I find that a lot of the theories these days teach that you need to come back for the endings, but you don't need to do that, and you can lop off tons and tons of strokes if you just tuck in those inflected endings. So find families, find things that are really going to give you bang for your buck, if that makes sense.
And what is your favorite practice technique? Is it
I just listen to speed contests, and I vary my practice a little bit. I listen to prior speed contests, and in a prior version of Windows, I used to be able to take media player up, 10% or 20% or 30%, or down. And so I would take a take, and if I was getting it pretty well, I would maybe bump it up 10%. And maybe bump it up another 10%, because you need to learn to listen faster. And so by making it faster than what you can actually write, then when you bring it back down to speed, it sounds pretty darn gettable. And one other thing that I might mention is, if you just listen, if you're trying to write 180 words a minute and you think that that's really, really fast, sit back, let a 180 play, and just listen to it without trying to write. You'll find that 180 is not that fast. It's all fast up in your mind. And so I'm trying to do what athletes do, and I don't know if you've heard the expression to slow it down, but in baseball, let's say you've got a pitcher that throws at you 100 miles an hour. Mentally, you've got to slow that down in your mind so that you can keep up with it. And I'm trying to do the same thing in steno. Just slow it down, if that makes sense.
It does. And then just one more question here. Do you do anything specific to get in that positive mindset before practicing or testing?
Brother, I would be a lot more positive with my practicing if I didn't practice at midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning. Oftentimes, it's because I belong to this practice page on Facebook that I'm pretty much committed, and so I don't want to let my peeps down. So I will practice it, and then when I'm done, I'm glad that I've done it. But I would say that if you can practice early, that would be far better. And again, you just want to stay positive, because you know that you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And by the way, if you're practicing and trying to pass 180 or what have you, it doesn't hurt to slow things down. Vary up your practice. You can, practice at 180, 190, 200, but if you're struggling, bring it down to 160, get that confidence back, then maybe bring it back up again. one thing that I've never been able to do is practice at, say, 25 or 30% beyond my speed. I can go up to maybe 10%, maybe 15%, but I don't want to practice way over my speed because that just shatters my notes.
Great. Well, I'm just going to pop on here and say thank you so much for coming. I know there's a couple other questions in the chat box, so I'm going to take those questions and send them to Ron, and I will post his answers in the Facebook page. So don't worry, you will get your questions answered from Ron. But thank you so much for coming on here, for sharing your wisdom and your practicing techniques and your mirror method and everything else. We really appreciate it. I know there's students here and reporters on here, so yeah, it's been great.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I just want to thank you for all that you do for court reporting, Laura. You're just an awesome example, and we need more like you. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And I always want to say one more thing to you. I'll see you in Italy.
Yes, go. Let's go. Looking forward to that. Thank you so much, you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming. And I will see you all on the next call. Bye-bye.
Good luck, everybody.